The concept of chaos and order is associated with Taoism or Taoism. It's rather simple. Life is divided between chaos and order. Too much chaos is bad and too much order is bad. Now, this is a Stoic podcast, sure, but there is much that we can gain by understanding this concept. And there may actually be more overlap than you think. How can the concept of chaos and order be understood through a Stoic lens, and how can we implement this idea in our daily life? Let's begin with some definitions. Order is exactly what you think it is. It's structure, rigidity, and chaos is the opposite, lack of structure, looseness, randomness. If there's too much order in our lives, we have too much structure. Imagine waking up every morning and doing the exact same thing each and every day. It may get a bit boring. Now imagine on the other hand that you have no set wake up time or sleep time, and what you do between waking and sleeping is entirely random. Well, that wouldn't be so good either. If we have too much chaos, we are in a constant state of anxiety and stress, yet we never really get anything done. If we have too much order, there are no thrills in life and no challenges. If we were to look at this concept through a Stoic lens, we can quickly see some parallels. Firstly, the dichotomy of control. The dichotomy of control is essentially a dichotomy, of course, between chaos and order. That which is up to you is that which you can order. And that which is not up to you is chaos. It's things that you have no business ordering because you cannot. They're not up to you. In fact, Stoicism is an antidote to dealing with the chaos in life through the use of order. What is up to you? Your thoughts, your opinions, your actions. What is not up to you? What happens to you? What life does to you or for you? The Stoics suppose that if you do not have any order in your life, your thoughts will run amok. You will live in a constant state of chaos, and that is not good. Put another way, if we do not implement any order in our lives by taking responsibility for that which is up to us, our life will be entirely chaos or chaotic. You can be sure of one thing. Life will give you enough chaos if you engage with it. In other words, if you are pro-social. How then could one have too much order if life will always give one chaos? Well, it's simple. If we lock ourselves up, we will not have any chaos in our lives. The Stoics often spoke about how many of us cut ourselves off from humanity. Marcus Aurelius said, "A branch cut away from the branch beside it is simultaneously cut away from the whole tree. So too, a human being separated from another is cut loose from the whole community." They also spoke about how important it is to be pro-social, to engage with the world. They did not believe in withdrawal from the community, rather quite the contrary. Being pro-social means engaging with the community. Marcus Aurelius also had a passage where he talks about how a human arm can be severed from the body and you can't put it back. And we can sever ourselves from humanity, but we can always put ourselves back in. In sum, if we are living a stoic life and not locking ourselves up, there will be enough chaos in our lives to keep us awake. That's what order is. Focusing on what is up to us. Let's get practical here. Let's look at the practical example of your home. Your home is your sanctuary. It's where you periodically withdraw from the external world, entering into the shell where you can recover and be with your family. Now, I find it hard to believe that anyone could be happy in a filthy house. Now, I'll put my hand up and I'll admit that my house is not always flawlessly clean. That is a standard that is near impossible to maintain, especially if you do things like bake bread like I do. Does anyone like breadcrumbs around the house on the counter? That is a prime example of how if we engage in the world, there will be enough chaos in our lives. If we clean our homes and never do anything for fear of cleaning up, well, that's no good. Imagine if you spend a full day cleaning your house and it's spotless. There isn't a speck of dust in the house. Your board games are in order along with everything else. And then a friend comes over and you're reluctant. You don't want to offer them a drink because you'll have to place a coaster under that drink. You'll have to clean the glass afterwards. You might get a ring on your table if you don't have a coaster. But you do, you give them a drink because it's the polite thing to do. And then next, your friend wants to play a board game and you refuse. You say, no, I'm kind of reluctant to play the board game because we got to take the pieces out and we got to clean up after. I want to maintain my house in a perfectly clean way. Now, that's a clear example of too much order. Your over cleanliness is interfering with your ability to be pro-social and have fun with your friend. Now, what about the other end of the spectrum? Your friend comes over and there's dirty glasses all over your house. Your board games are disorganized and the pieces are all mixed in. Your Monopoly pieces are in your Clue board game box. And it takes you an hour just to get all the pieces together to play Monopoly. And maybe there's a foul smell in your apartment from that moldy lemon you left on your counter, but refuse to throw away. Now, I don't think I have to explain how terrible that is and how terrible that would be. So how do we find that balance between chaos and order in a practical sense? Now, in some real sense, I think we actually have the ability to feel this. We know when we're balancing chaos and order because we're not miserable in our daily lives. We may not be happy all of the time if we are balanced, but we certainly shouldn't be miserable. We shouldn't be in a state of quiet desperation. Now, if we wake up in the morning with purpose, that's a pretty good indication that you have an approximate balance. And that's all we can really hope for in life is getting an approximate balance. We could also look at the extremes to give us an indication of when we've gone too far. If you are one of the examples from above, let's say your house is way too clean or way too filthy, you may have a problem. Those are extreme situations. If you're withdrawn from the world, that's a problem. If you are never alone, that too is a problem. If you find your work boring, you have too much familiarity, not enough challenge. In other words, you have too much order. If, on the other hand, you're struggling with work, maybe you're failing at work because there's too much chaos, there's too much unknown in your job. Maybe you've taken on a job that is too difficult for you right now. To go back to the house cleanliness example, ask yourself this. Would I be embarrassed if someone walked into my house right now? Now, that may mean that you need to do some ordering. But what if no one wants to come into your house at all because you're too strict with your house rules? I'm sure we've all been to the crazy aunt's house who has plastic on the furniture and they don't want you to touch anything. They just want you to sit in one place because they don't want the house to be messed up. That's too much. That's too far. So it's a useful trick. Look at the extremes. It's hard to know if you're perfectly balanced, and you likely never really are in life, but it's a little easier if we look at the extremes. Are we just way too cleanly and we don't want to engage in a pro-social manner? Or is our house just a pigsty? Those are extremes. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle there. And maybe you got to do a little bit of tweaking to get the balance a little bit better. But you can look at the extremes to kind of get some sense of where you are on the spectrum. So how do we implement order? Well, first, let's just set the stage that implementing chaos is pretty easy. You just go be pro-social, as the Stoics suggest. You go out into the world, you engage in the world in a pro-social manner, you go out into the community, you engage in work. If you do that, there's going to be enough chaos in your life because you're going out into the unknown. Now, what about implementing order? Now, I know I probably sound like a broken record, but you need some sort of routine. You should get up at the same time every day, more or less. You should go to bed at the same time every day, more or less. You should have blocks of time throughout the day for working, for going to the gym, for socializing, spending time with family, and so on. And you know what? Set aside some time for chaos too. Give your time just to be, to doom scroll, to YouTube, whatever it is. Blocking out time for ordering is simply the best trick in the book. Now, what that looks like is maybe you have to spend 10 minutes every morning tidying up your house. Or maybe you spend Sunday morning for 2 hours cleaning. Or heck, you use the last 10 minutes before bed. It's a good winding down practice with no screen lights. On a weekly basis, maybe Friday night is your chaotic night. Maybe Saturday morning is your cleaning morning to clean up the chaos from the night before. Now, this is easier said than done, and what I've found to be a useful trick is to set a timer and give yourself time to order or to tidy in this example. Now, what that means is you wander around the house, and when you see something that you actually usually ignore, maybe you have a book on the mantelpiece that you've been meaning to put back in the bookshelf for 2 weeks, you act on it. It's pretty interesting. When we go about our life, there's these little callings for us to implement order. And I mentioned earlier about how we can get a real sense of if we're too ordered or too chaotic in our lives just by how we generally feel. If your life has too much chaos in it, you'll go through your life and you'll get these little impulses to perhaps clean things up or to answer emails or whatever it might be, to order. The remote calls out to pick me off the floor. Maybe the breadcrumbs on the counter whisper, just grab a cloth, wipe me away. So what I found a very useful trick is just give yourself a window to listen to that voice. You can't do that all the time because you need to remove distractions to get work done. If you have a 2-hour work window in the morning, let's say, and then you have a break after that, in that 2 hours, you want to remove distractions. You don't want to listen to that voice. But when you have to, say, tidy up your filthy house, maybe you give yourself a window to actually listen to that voice. Just some closing remarks here. This idea of chaos and order, it's really practical. It seems a little bit up in the air, but it's actually really practical. Understand the importance of both. You need enough chaos to keep yourself interested in life. You need enough order to not fall into pieces and to have too much anxiety. Ensure that you're getting enough chaos and order by being pro-social and setting aside time for ordering in your life. And use your general feeling of meaning as an approximate input for how close you are to balancing chaos and order. And when your life feels chaotic, remember that the cosmos, the greater whole, it's always in order. It can't help but to be in order. And that you can't help but to ultimately serve that greater whole. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe with the notifications turned on. The Strong Stoic Podcast is also available in audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, you can join Substack to gain access to transcripts, articles, and premium podcast episodes.